Welcome, everyone. This is Karen, and we're going to be starting the presentation in a couple of minutes. Uh, please bring your questions. Please feel free to answer any and all questions that you have during the webinar, because my aim is to answer them. Can I have a sound check? Could you please put in the chat if you can hear? Or there's also a little emoji thing. You can hit a thumbs up. Awesome. You can hear me. Isn't that cute? I love those little thumbs that go up. So I'm going to apologize in advance. I promised those of you who took the last webinar, I promised I was going to be going over the custom canvases. And I started my presentation, and I ended up with about 60 some slides. I'm trying to keep these presentations to about a half an hour so that we have plenty of time, for questions. And I thought 60 slides was a little bit too much. So I decided to break it down. And so today's topic is going to be custom fields, which you really have to understand before you start using your custom canvases. The next webinar, again, I run these webinars on the second and the fourth Wednesday of every month. The next one is going to be on those custom canvases, but I really felt it would be an injustice not to go over some of this material first. If you are working in ACT, I had two clients this week that jumped right into custom canvases. They hadn't created their fields yet. They made a mess. They were frustrated. Things are moving around. I really think you need to get your fields done first. And then once you have those fields done, then we start with the custom canvases. It's going to be a heck of a lot easier. Okay, I'm going to give it just a minute. We've got a bunch of people, it looks like, still waiting to sign on. Again, I think y'all know who I am, Karen Fredericks. And if you have any questions on anything in Zoho, ask, brief from Ask to Zoho. Really, any questions that you have, feel free to email me. If you're it would have been nice if I put my email address in correctly, but it's karen@techthunders.com. I'm here for you. I'm here to answer your questions. And if you have any questions during this webinar, just feel free to ask them. Okay. I'm starting at 12 o'clock, so I'm just going to get started, even if a few people are late, because I do have a lot of material to cover. Okay, so today's presentation is about customizing your data. And to start with, Zoho has 23 field types. Alt has 16, so obviously there's a few extra ones that Zoho has that ACT doesn't have, and we're going to be talking about those, including a few that don't work. If you've ever tried to use a formula field in ACT, you found that it just doesn't work. If you ever tried to use the initial caps, which sounds like such a wonderful idea, you'll find that that doesn't work. If you use the initial caps on a company field, for example, and you're dealing with McDonald's, you're going to get a capital M, and everything else is going to be lowercase, including the Donalds of McDonald's. So that initial case and the uppercase were two of their fields, and they really weren't too useful. The formulas didn't work, so well, they had about 13 field types. In ACT, we have one type of layout. You have that basic layout. You go up into tools, design, layout, and you can make different layouts, but they were all based on that same structure of layouts. In Zoho, we have two types of layouts. We have what we call standard layouts, and then we have the custom canvas layouts, which is what we're going to work on next meeting. We have the ability in Zoho to edit all entities. So for example, let's say you're going into notes and you would like to add an extra field to notes. That's probably not a great example. Activities would probably be a better example. Let's say when you create your activities, you have activities around 3 different departments, maybe your marketing department, your sales department, and your customer service department. You can actually add a field to your activities template. We couldn't customize any of those extra entities like notes or activities or histories. We couldn't add fields to those in Ask. We also have additional modules that come with Zoho. So, for example, if you want to start creating invoices or product lists or any of that kind of stuff, it's included with Zoho. It's there already. We don't need to make custom modules. However, if you do want to create custom modules, we have that ability, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. We have custom modules in Ask as well. However, they charge you $120 per user per year to use their custom tables. And quite honestly, their tables are a little bit kludgy. It's kind of an add-on. It's not built into the program. It's an add-on. So when things go wrong, in fact, your custom tables aren't even part of your Act backup. So I've had a lot of people that move servers or whatever, and they have a backup, they restore it on the server, and they go, wait, my tables are missing. Yeah, that's because you have to, tables kind of like a separate thing. You have to go in there and back them up separately. Okay. So in Act, this is the way we added fields. We would add a field. We had like we went to tools, add a field. We had a wizard, kind of next. And, you know, it took a while to get to that wizard. And one thing that was kind of irritating, especially for those of you that have, I know there's somebody on this call that has 45 users. And if he wanted to make a change to a field, he had to knock all the users out because they had to be out of the database. It would lock the SQL tables, and that's how you could get in and work. In someone saying their sound is muffled. Is anybody else feeling like the sound is muffled? Because I am using my AirPods. I can switch over to my speaker if anybody else is feeling. Okay, so someone gave me it very muffled. Okay, let me try to. Okay, probably going to regret this. Let me try to move over my speakers. Okay, give me a second.
Okay, does that sound better now? Can I hear a someone just said make sure your hair is not over your earpods. Okay, so that apparently sounds better. So okay, so we're going to continue without the earpods. I do like the person who said make sure your hair is not over the earpods. I think that's actually that made me giggle, because if anybody that knows me knows I have a lot of hair, a lot of long curly hair. Anyway, so in Act, we had a wizard that we could create those fields, and a lot of people had trouble because we had to go next, and we had to kick our users out of the database. If you wanted to drop down, you had a choice of either creating the drop down first, which seems kind of ass backwards, sorry, but you'd say, oh, I'm going to create a field and I think I'm going to have a territories. So let me make that territory drop down first, then I'll make the field and then I'll connect the drop down. Or you created the field and then you had to go back and create a drop down, and then you had to go back and connect the two. So it was kind of kludgy. And then, of course, you know that once you did that, you would be able to add the field to your layout. So it was kind of, a lot of people didn't know that. They created a field. They thought, wait, what happened to my field? It was kind of a long, arduous process, and particularly people with a lot of users that had to kick everybody out of their database. So in Zoho, it's a little bit easier. It's a drag and drop. We're going to pick a field type. We're going to drag it onto the layout. We're going to edit the properties, and we're going to hit save. Kind of one-stop shopping. So it's super easy to do. So caution. I have converted over 300 databases from Act to Zoho at this point. And it is amazing what I find in your databases. Lord love you. It's not your fault. A lot of you have had your databases for 20, 30 years. And over the years, you've had different administrators, different hands in the pot, different consultants. I always felt less was more. The fewer fields you had, the more better your database would work. But a lot of other consultants kind of charge by the pound. And hey, I'm going to add 50 fields to your database because I'm going to charge you $25 a field. I'm going to make lots of money. At the end of the day, those extra fields weren't used, and people forgot about them. I had someone the other day that says, oh, I have no custom fields. Looked into the SQL tables, and he had 55 custom fields. None of them have ever been used the first time, but he had 55 custom fields. So before you customize, think about it, because remember, Zoho has over 100 million users. And let's say you want something like a cell phone field. Ask yourself, am I the first person in the world that ever wanted a cell phone field? Or could that field possibly already be here somewhere and I don't know about it? Oh, territory. Am I the first person in the world that ever wanted to take my sales guys and break them down by territory? Or maybe one of those other 100 million plus users came up with that idea before. So that's the problem I see a lot is people want to create a lot of fields and they're already there somewhere in the database. So plan. Now, this one's not going to be popular. You cannot change a Zoho data type once you've created it. And I've had a couple of people that were very upset with me about that. And here's the reason. In ACT, some people would create, say they wanted a phone field, and they would make it a text. And then they got a phone system. This was years ago when you could still use cell phone, or you could still dial out of ACT, which you really can't anymore. But they would try to dial out of ACT. And it was a text field. And they go, oh, let me move it over to a phone field. Well, ACT lets you do that. But unfortunately, let's say you had parentheses and you had dashes, you had some of that stuff that you had typed in manually. When you converted that field over, sometimes you lost that. Or worse, you'd lose like the last 3 or 4 characters of a phone number. And I don't know about you, but if you lose the last 3 or 4 characters of a phone number, not going to be too easy for you to use. So in Zoho, once you create a field type, we can't change it. However, if you have done that and you have hundreds of contacts, I do have a couple of tricks to move your data from one field to another so that you don't lose that data, but you can't just go in and take a field and change it. So it's like, look before you leap. Start planning those fields in advance. Okay, here's a couple of quick tips. If you have a field that you might be using for accounts, which is your company's contacts, maybe even deals, like say an account number, start by creating it in lead. You have one shot to do this. When you create a brand new lead field, you can take that same field and also create it for accounts, contacts, and or deals. You can create it for all three. You can just create it for contacts. So I've had a lot of people that have like a certain field and they want to have that same field in contact. Yeah, you can do it twice. You can go into your leads, create a field, and then go into contacts and create a field. Or you can create it once in leads and just click those little buttons. So that's my first little tip for you. Okay, my second tip, I've already said, create your field in the standard layout first. If you want to use that canvas view, use it later after you know all your fields are in place and they're working properly. You got the right data type. It's going to be so much easier. Okay, so to add fields, we start at settings. And those of you that have taken these webinars before know that everything starts, I like to call it a flower, but that's me, and we're getting close to Valentine's Day. I guess the guys in the crowd probably call that the gear button, but that little gear is where everything in Zoho starts. So you're going to hit settings, and you're going to go to the customizations area, go to modules and fields. And from there, you're going to pick the module that you want to add fields to. And you're going to pick layout and go to the standard layout. And when you do, this is what you're going to see. And if you can master this one little screen here, you have now become a customization king or queen of Zoho. So over here we have all the possible fields that we can add in Zoho. Over here, we have something called unused fields. That's actually a field recycle bin. With the recycle bin, sometimes people decide they don't need a field and then they change their mind. So we can put things in the recycle bin and then we can delete them permanently. Or if we decide later we need to use it, we can always bring them out of that recycle bin just in case we made a mistake. I'm not saying you're going to make a mistake. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I make mistakes all the time, and I like to have a recycle bin. It will also tell you how many custom fields are left. You have a certain limit of custom fields depending on your version of Zoho. So some of you that have the standard version of Zoho CRM gives you 10 fields per module. It doesn't give you a lot of custom fields. You may have simpler needs. Professional gives you 155 fields per module. Zoho One comes with the Enterprise Edition. It gives you 300 fields per module. If you knock heads against that limit, we can always get it increased for you. But those are the basic limits. And if you have more than 300 fields per module, I think you might be doing something wrong because that's a lot of fields. We have section heads, so we can organize our fields. So I've got my lead information up here and I might have my address information. So I can make a little section. Now in the act layouts, we can make like some words, we can make a text box. But when we make a new section, and we're going to be going over that later, we can actually give it a name and it puts all the fields in a little box. So they're all organized and grouped together nicely. We have 3 things up here: create, which is where you start, quick create, and detail view. We're going to be going over those in a little bit. And we can drag fields. When you put your mouse on any of these fields, your cursor is going to turn into a hand. I'm sure you're used to seeing that. You can drag these fields up, down, sideways, drag them anywhere you want. You could drag them into another section if you want. And these 3 little buttons are the properties. That's it. If you could remember these 4 or 5 little areas, that is it. So the name of the game is that you're going to be taking a field and dragging it over to where you want it, and then you're going to customize the field. Okay, and again, if you have any questions, please let me know. So I'm going to go over the field types. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. You've already used them in ACT. I've put a star, an asterisk, after the ones that are new to Zoho that we didn't have in ACT, just so you maybe zone in on those a little bit more. But we have a single line field, text field, most common one, up to 2,000 characters. So you can get a lot of stuff in a little single text field. That's something that usually you don't search on. It's just informational. It might be an address. It might be, really, it's probably the most commonly used field. Multi-line is a bigger field. They come in small, medium, and large, or small, large, and rich text. Realize that if you use a large multi-line field, multi-line means that it's going to take up more than one line. It's going to be like a double high field, if you will. If you have small, fine, no problem. It's the only difference between this and this is it's got 2 lines on top of each other. You can make it large, 32,000 characters, kind of a memo field in ACT, or a rich text field, 50,000 characters, because part of that 50,000 includes formatting. Just realize when you start working with those really huge, large fields, it's more of like a memo type of thing. They're not things that we normally search on, so they're not searchable. I like to let you know that going in. I should have put a little asterisk here because we don't have these. Well, we do have a memo field, so I guess that's similar to ACT. We have email fields. That you can click on any of these email fields, and if you're tied into Outlook, it's going to open up your Outlook email and shoot away. We have phone number fields with proper formatting. We have over 400 VoIP systems that work with Zoho. So like with me, I've got people's cell phone numbers, I've got their direct lines, I've got their 800 numbers. I could click on any of those and call out right from Zoho. So when we create the multi-line, by the way, I'm going to show you what the properties look like. Here's where you could say, okay, I want a multi-line field. I'm going to call it whatever I want to call it. I want the plain. I want the plain at large. I want the rich text. I feel like I'm ordering from McDonald's. I'll have extra pickles on that. But you can pick your choices here. You can make that field required. You know, everybody has to do it. Tooltip. Okay, let's see if you're listening. What do you think a tooltip is? If I added a tooltip to a field, what do you think a tooltip is? Go ahead and type it in the Q&A. What do you think a tooltip is? Come on. Somebody could guess. This isn't hard. Okay, someone said a pop-up. And yeah, Russ, I would say that's probably the best way to say a tooltip. So for example, maybe you have a ranking field and you want to have a tooltip that says, okay, platinum is over $50,000 in sales, gold is over 25,000 in sales, and silver is all over 10,000 in sales. So it's like a tooltip, like a, you know, when you hover your mouse over the field, it'll tell you what that is. Encrypted fields. I've never known Zoho to be hacked, but if your computer got hacked, somebody got into your computer, whatever, we can encrypt fields. We actually have a layer of encryption. Those of you that are in that have HIPAA compliancy or SOX compliancy, you're probably familiar with the need to have encrypted fields. Yes, Zoho has encrypted fields. And Missy said it's much easier to add fields in Zoho. I'm with you there. I think it's so easy to add fields, and I love it. Someone said, like an act, is it possible to create a field that allows you to add new items to a list from the dropdown without having to add them to the settings? No. That was a feature that I hated more than anything in the world. In Act, we could make we had a setting automatically add items to the drop down. Your drop down list should have between 12 and I'm going to say 18 items. If your drop down has more than 18, you probably need to break that field into a smaller, into two smaller fields. I've seen people that have hundreds of items in your drop down, and I don't think it's doing anybody any favors if you have to be searching through 100 items. So no, you cannot add drop down items directly from a field. You have to do it in the settings area. Okay, we have number fields. Number, which is your typical whole number. We have decimal fields, which the name implies, dot, whatever. We have currency fields. We have percent fields, which automatically adds that percentage. And if you're using those in calculations, it figures that, you know, it takes it as a percentage instead of as a whole number. We have long integer. I have yet to figure out why in the world you would need a long integer, because your regular decimal fields have 16 places to the left of the decimal point. And to me, that's a pretty long integer. But I guess if you need more than 16 places, you could put in a long integer. And again, we don't have percent fields or long integer fields in ACT. Okay, here's the currency properties as an example. You can decide the maximum number of digits in front of the decimal, and you can, of course, make that smaller. The number of decimal places after, spaces after the decimal point. You could round. So if you put in like 12.855, how is it going to round it? You know, and again, we could, you know, make it a required field and do all these things. So that's what the properties will look like for that one. We have date fields. We can have date and we can have date and time. Those are pretty self-explanatory. We have what I call selection fields. We have a pick list, a multi-select pick list. In other words, I could pick 2 items from the drop-down. We have check boxes, you know, which you could click on, just like we have an ACT. Here's my pick list items. A couple of things that we don't have an ACT, which I think are super, super cool. When we do a pick list, we can either have a local list, which means I'm going to make this field have its own unique pick list. I can also create global sets. So let's say I'm doing something like states. Last I knew, I heard someone's trying to make it 51, but the last I heard we have 50 states. We could make a global set of states. So if you're using a state field in numerous places in your database, you could reuse it. Sometimes people will have, some kind of product list or departments, and they want to use those departments in various areas of their database. We can have a global set. One thing that's super cool is we can, to me, and again, I'm a geek. I like Zoho, so maybe to you this isn't super cool. Sorry. We can have our drop-down list either in the order entered or in alphabetical order. So let's say we have red, white, and blue. Well, in ACT, that would be blue, red, and white is the way it would come out because they had to be in alphabetical order. In Zoho, if we don't want them in alphabetical order, we want them like, well, let's see, diamond is my top, and platinum is my second, and then I have gold, and then I have silver. We can put them in the order of importance. And you just drag, you see this little handle right in front of option 1. I can drag my order. We also have something I think is super cool. Again, sorry for the geekdom, but we can enable color with our pick list choices. So you might have a customer status field, for example, and it might be active, inactive, on the fence, whatever. So you might take all your anybody that's marked active and make that blue. You might take anybody that's on the fence and mark it as yellow. You might take anybody that's inactive and mark it as red. So that when you look at a contact record right away and they have these drop downs filled in, those colors kind of jumped out at you. I find that's a really cool feature. I like that. Again, what can I say? I'm a woman. I like colors and I'm geeky. So here's a couple of advanced field types. We have formulas, we have users, we have lookup fields, and we have multi-lookup fields. Okay, let's go. We had formula fields in ACT. They did not work. The reason they did not work was twofold. If you're adding the values in 3 fields, you had to make sure you had a 0 or a value in all 3 fields, or it didn't work. So people would want to add like, well, here's the invoice cost, here's the sales tax, and here's the shipping. Well, maybe there was no shipping and they forgot to put a 0 in there. It wouldn't add up. So they didn't know that. The other thing in ACT, they didn't calculate until you actually hit the refresh button. So people would sit there and they have these formulas. Birthday. Why is it kind of silly to have a birthday field, not the birthday, but the age field? Why would it be silly to have an age field as a text field in your database? Okay, wake up. Who knows the answer? Why would it be silly to have an age field as a text field in your database? Anybody? Bueller? Let's see. It's it's not dynamic. Okay, I'll accept that as an answer. So if I had a field and I called it age and it was a text box and I said, okay, they are 24. Well, guess what? 3 years from now, they're not going to be 24. So something like calculating an age, that would be a formula field. And again, those are the things that people set up in ACT and they would go in there and they just didn't work because they didn't realize they had to refresh it for each and every contact every time they looked at it. These refresh automatically. User. We can add a user field and it's going to let us pick users. Zoho comes with a record creator and it comes with a contact owner, which would be like the record manager in Zoho or in ACT. Why would we want to have a field for users? Can anybody think of an example of that? Why would we want to have a field for users? Anybody? Okay, I've had a lot of people over the years that say, I have 4 salesmen that are working on this deal. And they want to have 4 salesmen and they didn't know where to put them. They couldn't use record manager because it could only be 1 field. This will let you pick multiple fields. Then we have a lookup field and a multi-select lookup. These things are dynamite on wheels. A lookup field will link to another record in another module. So let's say, for example, you're an attorney and you're working with insurance agents or insurance companies, you could have a lookup field called insurance agent and go in there and it would look through all your contacts and you could type in the name of the insurance agent and you could have that field right on your contact record. It's that one-to-one relationship. We can also filter those so that we would only see, oh, just pick from insurance agents. And there we go. Someone said, did I stop screen sharing? No, I didn't. You might have fallen off of the screen. Maybe see if you see the screen behind you somewhere. Is anybody else not seeing my screen? Okay. We also have multi-select lookup fields. So for example, let's say you're an attorney and you're working with, there was God forbid, there was a loss of a house in California and you're working with 3 different insurance agents. You can have a multi-select field that would allow you to pick 3 different contacts, multiple contacts. So these could be really powerful fields. Now, I'm going to give you some advice on the formulas. 2 pieces of advice from my 25 years of wisdom of doing this. First of all, if you're going to make a formula field, I would probably hire the kid down the street that got a 1500 on their SATs and does really well in algebra to help you. I probably am not going to be the person to help you with formulas because we have things like exponentiation. And my rule of thumb is if I can't pronounce it, I probably can't use it. We have formulas that I have never in my life. Natural log, base 1 log. I don't know what these guys are, folks. I'm hoping you do. If you don't know what they are, you're probably like me. You don't need to use them. But I can tell you, when you start putting your formulas together, there's a check syntax button. So if you're not sure, there you go. You can take your fields and put in your formulas. And again, Zoho is dynamic. It will automatically update all your existing contacts that have that formula field and those fields that it uses on the record. Okay. The user field properties, by the way, when we create a user field, like, picking a user, we can either have it for single user. We're going to link just to a single one of your users or multiple users. Upload fields. We can have a URL. So if you want to link to a website, click. We have a file upload and we have an image upload. And I'm going to go into this file upload. So if we create a file upload field and we want to upload a field, we just click here and we can upload a file. We can upload a file from the Zoho documents area. Zoho CRM has a documents area. We could upload it from Zoho Work Drive. And Amy, I know you're on the call. Your mother asked me a question about this. I wanted clarification. She never got back to me because I think you guys might be going in the wrong direction as far as your documents. So I do want to reach out to you and let you know that there's a couple of different. Work Drive is a part of Zoho One. It's like a Dropbox. Documents is kind of a smaller thing. It's more like the attachments folder in ACT, but it lets you create subfolders. What a thing. The attachments folder in ACT, as most of us know, you can't create subfolders. We can also upload a file right from, maybe you use Dropbox. We can upload a file. Once you upload it, you are going to see the name of the file, and there's going to be a little upload button here, and you just click it. Down here, there's going to be a little upload button. You click it, and then you can see that document. Not a fan of this for a ton of documents because I think documents in Work Drive are much better options. But it is good if you do occasionally want to have attachments brought into your database. Okay, now I'm going to talk about layout embellishments. One is to add a new section. So a new section would be like this. I may want all my address information together, and here's my fields. I may want my software information, and here's all my fields. And again, you just drag over a section, start adding the fields to it. We also have something called a subform. Okay, I think of this kind of like secondary contacts in ACT. I have a subform in my database, and I have credit card information, and some people have 3 and 4 credit card information they want me to keep on file. Now, any of you that have that, I will tell you I only keep the last 4 digits of the credit card number, but I have the credit card holder name, the last 4 digits of their number, the expiration date, the CVC, the address, because a lot of times people use credit cards and they're not the same. They're using a company credit card and it may be a different name than the person I'm dealing with. I've had people use subforms for parts. They've sold them 3 or 4 different parts and they want the serial numbers in there. So these are like subfields. You could search on them. They're just like the name implies, they're a subform, including subfields. They're very similar to what we would have with our secondary contacts in ACT, but we could use it for a lot more things. Okay, I call these cool fields. Again, I need to get a life. But there's 2 types of fields that we have. One, I'm not sure that I would ever use it, but yeah, there's a thought. So the auto numbering, I think is very cool. Some people number their clients or they number, my husband's an attorney. Oh, don't get me started on file numbers. We could put in auto numbering and we could start it with, okay, the first one's going to be K-1001. And then every time we have a new case, it's going to give it a new number, K0, -0, what was it, 1002, 1003, etc. So we could do auto numbering. We have something called a roll-up summary. This is the one that's a relatively new thing. I tried it. I wasn't really a fan because I think I could get my information other places. But basically, that roll-up summary lets you pick one of the other modules and it's going to count them. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to see, and this was a stupid example, I want to see how many notes I have for the person. I can actually have a little field that gives me the number of notes. To me, that's kind of a waste of time because I could go down to the notes and it gives me a count there. But it's like, well, okay, it's another way of doing it. You could count how many invoices you've had with somebody, how many deals you've had with them. Most of those things are counted other places as well. But it's worth a look. It's there, and I'm sure somebody can figure out a better reason to use it than what I'm giving you. Okay, editing fields. Couple of notes. When we edit fields, basically we hit those 3 little dots, and that will take us to the property window. First off, system fields. You can remove them from the layout, but you cannot delete or change them. And some of you are like really ticked off about that. Well, I want to change my system field. Why can't I change them? Here's why, folks. In ACT, there were 16 what I called sacred cow fields. And we could tell they were sacred cow fields because we couldn't delete them in ACT. But a lot of you went in there and you made changes to them. And you didn't tell me what changes you made. You forgot what changes you made. And then 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, you went to run a report and the report didn't work right. Or you went to run labels and the labels didn't run right because they were based on those core fields. And now I'm like, well, I don't know. And I'm going into the reports, I'm trying to fix it. And I'm going into the labels, I'm trying to fix it. And I realized that you had changed those core fields. So that's why they don't let you change those core fields. However, one of the fields up here is account name. You notice it's a lookup field. That's actually a tie to your account module in Zoho. I can change the module name. So let's say you're working with hospitals and you don't work with accounts. You can change the module name from account to hospital. And then up here, it would ask you for the name of the hospital. So there's kind of a workaround if you really need, if you don't want to call your contacts, you want to call them clients, all that kind of stuff. So there's kind of a workaround to change them, but you have to go back into the module itself. Now, the other thing, when you create custom fields, and I like this, I don't know if you can tell, you might be colorblind or the screen might not look that easy to see, but some of these fields are in, well, I'm going to ask you, what color are the names of some of these fields? Anybody tell? Wake up. What color are these fields? These little field headers. brown. Yay, they're brown. That's how, of course, if you would have read over here, not that Amy and Missy aren't brilliant, but that's how they got their answers. Well, the custom fields are brown, and I love that because when you have those fields in brown, I know if it was a out of the box field or if it was one that you created, and it just to me makes life a lot easier. Anybody want to guess what this red line is in front of 3 of these fields? Anybody want to guess what that red line is? Ooh, someone's got to guess. Oh, Amy and Missy, man, you guys rock today. Gold star on your foreheads. Yes, they are required fields. If you make a field required, that's going to show in red. Note to yourself, if you're importing data, be careful with that, because I've had people that make a field required. Now they want to import information. The information they import, I think, Missy, we were working on an import list. If you don't have one of those required fields in your import, then you're not going to be able to import the list. So be careful. Sometimes I have to turn those off when I'm working on a database. I have to turn it off and turn it back on. But yeah, those are required fields. Also, when you make custom fields, they have to be distinct. They can't be the name of one of your existing modules. So I couldn't create a new field called account because that's the name of one of my existing modules. I might have to call it account number or account type, or just change it slightly. Okay, so I go to a field and I hit the 3 little the property button, that ellipsis, and I can mark a field as required. I can set permissions. Usually don't set permissions on a field basis. I'm going to show you an easier way to do that. That means who gets access to a field. But I usually go into either mark as required or edit properties. So when I go into edit properties, I showed you this a minute ago. I can go in, like if I'm looking at a pick list, I can set a default value. I don't want to show this. Steve, if you were on this meeting, close your eyes and close your ears. I do not want you to see this field. But in ACT, we could create a history every time we changed certain fields. Some of you used that quite a bit. You used it on almost every field you have, and we ended up with a ton of probably unnecessary history. But if you really do want that history of every time you change a field, who changed it and why, I have some people that put it on address fields because they want to make sure that their users aren't doing something stupid. We can add that address field or that history tracking field, make fields required, make a field public so everybody gets to see it. So here's my other quick tip. If you go back to the setup where we started, you go into the module, we went into layouts. That's where we've been working so far. If you go over here to fields, excuse me, they have a whole list of every field in your database, and you can pick roles out of the box. We have administrators and we have standards. So you might say, okay, my administrators, they get to see every field and they get to make changes to it. And you might say, well, my standards, they get to see some of these fields, but I don't want them to change it. Or there might be certain fields that you don't even want your standard users to see. Again, Steve, I think you asked me about this, like some of the permissions, and this is by far the easiest way. You could go field by field like we did in ACT and change the permissions. I think that's just, it's a lot of work. This is like just really clear. You can pull up the roles and you can see exactly what everybody can see. So I use the roles for my fields. And thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, Steve, don't get frisky. I will not share his comment with you. He was not nice. Just kidding. He's always nice. So when we go back into those layouts, we have something else, and that's one of the things that we have is called Quick Create. Quick Create, if you have someone that's doing a lot of data entry, maybe they don't need to see all the fields. The thing that's cool about Zoho is we can assign layouts to specific users. So you might have 50 fields for your contacts. But your average humdum sales guy only needs to say a half a dozen of them. Or maybe you hire someone that does the data import or data input. They don't need to see all those fields. This quick create, you can go up there and pick, like, these are my master fields. Like, you create a new contact. If you don't have these 8 fields, 9 fields, I haven't counted them yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. You don't have these 7 fields. I don't want you even created a contact. So you can kind of put those key fields in there if you want. And we call that quick create. When you go in to add a new contact, you could say, hey, just show me the quick create layout. It's up at the top of the screen. Boom, you got it. The other thing that we have that you can turn on or off, I love this one, is called the business card. And I hate the word business card because I don't think it gives it justice to me. It's just like super, super important stuff. These you can turn on or off. You can see I have got mine on. This will take 5 and only 5 fields, and it will show up at the top of every contact record. I love it because these, in my case, these are probably the 5 things that I change the most often in my own personal database. So every time I look at a contact record, I see those 5 fields at the top. I don't have to scroll down to the bottom. I don't have to look at all that stuff unless I'm looking for some other information. It's just up there at the top. This is also where you can kind of decide what areas you want to pull on your standard layout. You can take them off. You can put them on. You see, we have surveys and products and cadences and notebooks and cases. I've shown you in previous webinars other ways. Most of you, if I've given you a test drive, I've shown you how you can turn those off right from the contact records as well. But here's another way that you can turn off some of these things if you don't want them to be showing on your layouts. Okay, we're getting near the end here. Modules. Modules is kind of a one-to-many relationship. You're relating a list of products or services or other items to a contact or an account. Okay, who can think of a reason for adding a custom module? This is tough. Think of a reason why you might want to add custom modules. See, I could think of a great one for you. Okay, I'm going to use Missy as an example. This might not be a really great example, but she's in the education industry. And Missy, I hope I'm not, bothering you by sharing some of your information, but she's in the education industry. And let's say she was doing classes. She might create another list of classes as a custom module. And she might have one class that she calls training in CPR. And she might have another class that she calls, and I'm making this up as I go along, how to cheat on your accreditation report. I don't know, but she might be doing these different classes. And she wants to see both at the contact level what classes people have taken, and from the class level, who's enrolled in those classes. That would be a custom module. And again, we could add those in ACT. If you wanted to pay $120 per user per year, we could add them. You can add them for free of charge in Zoho. Not everybody needs them. Think before doing it. If you're not sure, just send me an email. Send me an email and I'll tell you if I think it would be a good fit for you. Because not everybody needs custom examples. For example, notes. Would I add a custom module for notes? No, there's already one there. Would I add a custom module for invoices? No, probably not, because there's already something there in Zoho. Would I add a custom module for parts? If I'm a manufacturer, yeah, that might be really cool because I could see a list of all my parts, and then I could also see who that part is issued to. So it's that kind of one-to-many relationship. And again, we just go into the setup area, we go to modules, and we go new module. And the cool part is you can create it, you can play with it. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it. It's not going to get rid of your contacts or anything else, but it is a cool feature for those who need it. Layout customizations, we're going to go into in great detail in 2 weeks on the 26th. But layout customizations, and Steve, again, please hide your eyes from the next couple of slides. Layout customizations, we have standard layouts. Those are the ones that I showed you that drag and drop. They're great ways to kind of get your workflow. Here's my important fields on the top. Here's my address fields. Here's my phone fields. Here's my specific fields. Very easy, drag and drop, very easy to create. Start there. Your custom canvases are the kind of fancier layouts that we're going to go into next time. If you're one of the people that started a trial through me, and I think everybody on this call is, I gave you some act-looking layouts just because, as a starting point, because some of you really, I find right now it's 50-50. Half of my clients are saying, I want my existing act layout. I don't want it to look differently. It needs to look exactly the same. My other half are saying, they were really ugly and I want to change. And I don't care. It's not me to make the choice. You guys can decide for yourself. Do you want the standard? Do you want the custom? So here's an example of the standard layout that we've been working on right now. It's just got these little sections, my contact information. Here's those 5 top fields I talked about. I have my deals over here. That's it, standard drag and drop. I had some people that say, I like it. It's neat, clean, easy to navigate. I had somebody say to me the other day, I can't stand all that white space. That white space gives me a headache. Okay, I got it. That's his opinion, and that's fine. Now, we have these custom canvases. The sky is the limit. So some people want to have their act layout. Some people want to have the standard layout. And some people might want to have something really pretty and cool layout. And I gave you a pretty cool layout to start with, to play with. For most of you, when I gave you those act layouts as well, that you can play with. Or if you want, we can customize, we could copy your existing layouts. Now, I've got to tell you, when I look at some of your existing layouts, they're a little bit tough because some of your fields are bigger than others, and some of your words are kind of blocked over and I can't really read them. So, they don't always necessarily line up really well. So I'll try to customize, copy them as best I can. But if they're kind of messy like this, it might be a little hard for me to copy. But, I'll probably take your existing layout. They'll just be a little bit more straightened up, but a little bit more uniform, but we can copy them. And you can have multiple layouts and assign specific ones to specific users. I have people that say, got to have my act layout. Okay, they have their act layout. This is the copy of the one that I gave to most of you free of charge in your demo account. Or they'll say, you know what? I have some people that want to use this one. I have some people that want to use this one. It doesn't make any difference to me. It's what you want. And you can assign your layouts to specific users. By the way, if you're looking for those act layouts, go to the bottom of any contact record and it's going to say layout. It'll probably say standard. Hit that drop down and you'll see, I think it says custom is the act one, and custom 2 is the kind of fancier one like this one. Okay, so today we covered fields, we covered layouts, we covered custom modules. Who has questions? I got 4 quickie bonuses that I had to show. Every time I'm going to try to give you a bonus, something you might not have found. I know Missy tells me she goes, it's webinar Wednesday. She gets all excited. We're going to go to the webinar. I'm going to learn something. And every time she sends me an email and says, yep, I learned something new. So this is dedicated to my friend Missy. A lot of people don't look at these little buttons down here at the bottom of their Zoho screen. They're kind of cool. And the 4 that I like particularly, one is recent items. I don't know if in ACT many of you use the previous lookup. You could go, and I think ACT kept a chart track of your last 6 lookups, which was nice. But if you closed out of ACT and went back in, you lost those lookups. If you go down here, there's one that says recent items. It doesn't forget them. I mean, you could reboot your computer, go back in the next day, and your recent items are there. So if you get interrupted, oh yeah, I was working with Steve, and here I want to, go over to Steve's record. They're right there under your recent items. Very cool. Sticky notes. Some of you like sticky notes. I was taught at a young age. I was, in Florida, we have paddle fans and don't use sticky notes. It does not end well, but you can actually create sticky notes. Those important things you have to remember, just create a little sticky note form. You like sticky notes? There you got it. Activity reminders. A lot of you loved your task list in ACT. You get that task list every day. You would go select all and snooze. That works so well for you. And then you'd wonder if you snoozed it, how do I get it back? Oh, wait, I snoozed it for 2 hours. I can't get it back now. We have activity reminders. One of these buttons down here says activity reminders. It'll tell you everything that's, going on for the next day or two if you have reminders. And we ask Zaya. Zaya is the form of AI that Zoho uses. This has been around for years. AI has really become popular, I'm going to say, in the last year. It's exploded throughout the metaverse. Zoho has had this for years. I always tell people probably should have been called ZAI, but they were ahead of their time. They called it Zaya. If you go down to that Ask Zaya button, let's say you're working with ACT and you're working with Zoho, you don't know how to do something. How do I assign a custom canvas to a specific user? How do I find a report that will do this, that, another thing? Just go down, type it in Ask Zaya, and it searches out there and it gives you answers. It's just a really quick way to find stuff. So don't forget these little buttons down here. They're there for a reason. They're tiny. They don't take up a lot of room. A lot of people miss them, but they got some good stuff in there. Questions. Our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, February 26th. I hold these on the 2nd and the 4th of every month. I'm probably at some point going to run out of material, so I'll probably start recycling some of my older webinars that we've done, and I'll certainly let you know when I do that. I'm thinking of maybe doing the repeats on the 2nd of the month and the new stuff on the 4th of the month, so that some of you, I can get some of this older information to people who haven't seen it yet, and the old hands like Amy and Missy can start just learning the new stuff and not, getting bogged down with the old stuff. Steve, I don't know if there's any hope for you. We might just have you going for a while. Just kidding. So any questions at all from anybody? No. Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to bid you a fond adieu and thank you. Thank you. I love people that found the little thing and they're clapping. Again, I'm always here. If you have questions, we are going to, I'm more than willing to hop on your screen. It's kind of a cool thing too, is if you signed up with me, I have access. Most of you, I have access to your databases. So if you need a quick fix, you just can't figure it out, I can hop in there and fix it for you. So I'm here for you. If you're still struggling and you've gone from ACT to Zoho, you are not alone. I am here for you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'll see you in 2 weeks, if not sooner. Bye, guys.